we needed to get how do you do innovation into our culture, not just into our business process and systems and have it be somebody's job description, but how do you take it and put it into your culture? We have to do something different than we've done before. We can't rely on our historical knowledge on what's worked well before. We have to take a new idea that somebody has and figure out how it would work.
On today's episode of the Association RevUP podcast, Chrissy Bagby of the American Association of Veterinary State Boards shares how AAVSB isn't just talking about innovation, they're actually doing it with the help of a proven framework. Then we'll hear from Elizabeth Engel of Spark Consulting, who shows us how to innovate successfully within our own associations. She'll help us shift our mindset to start thinking like a startup.
With this method, you are actively trying to prove yourself wrong every day. And in fact, being wrong is fine. It's a good thing as long as whatever you were wrong about, whatever your experiments showed you had messed up, you learned something from that. You measured that, you took that knowledge back and used it for your next iteration through the cycle to more closely approximate a viable solution to a real problem for an audience that you actually can touch on.
Hi, and welcome to Season 2 of the Association RevUp podcast, presented by the Professionals for Association Revenue. I'm your host, Carolyn Shomali. This season, we're hearing directly from associations that are using better business strategies to advance their missions, while following up their stories with quick, actionable tools from industry experts so you can apply those lessons to your own organization. Let's dive into Episode 2, AAVSB's Culture of Innovation, and how your association can think like a startup.
But we had reached that plateau of being an established organization that had key products and services that the industry knew. We were very stable. And our board of directors and the new CEO was very visionary in thinking, well, let's look at what we need to do to innovate to stay relevant before we get in a position where we're behind and we start losing resources and we don't have enough to invest. And when they did that, we not only tripled our staff size, but we tripled our product offerings.
If necessity is the mother of invention, then being aware of when your association has plateaued may just be the spark behind innovation. That was the case with the American Association of Veterinary State Boards, according to Chief Strategy Officer Chrissy Bagby. What began as a completely volunteer-led organization 65 years ago is now an association with 35 staff members serving the 63-member boards dedicated to regulating veterinary medicine. Throughout this episode, we'll look at how AAVSB innovated, but the biggest lesson to innovation may be the first. They knew that successful innovation would only occur with an internal culture shift. So to begin, AAVSB implemented a 2-person innovation team, which includes Bagby, with the focus of achieving staff buy-in to a new approach.
We need to do something different. We need to create a product development framework. We need to take these things that are ideas and figure out if they even have legs before we spend a bunch of money, a bunch of time, and invest in them. Because we have really good people, but associations hire for customer service and relationship building and working with your members. We don't act like a startup. We don't hire or manage in a startup way. And so we could either hire people, which meant we may have to change our workforce a bit, or we could incorporate a system that lifted everybody's skill level. And that's what we decided to do. To make this, a cultural change that everybody in the organization could participate in and learn something new from.
Bagby leaned into a framework presented by Eric Ries in his book, The Lean Startup: How Today's Entrepreneurs Use Continuous Innovation to Create Radically Successful Business. Ries's experience as first a software engineer and later a startup project manager led him to create a methodology for product development. Here he is speaking about it in a 2011 talk presented by Google.
the way that we organize new product development is basically wrong. And that most of the energy that we are investing into what is called entrepreneurship when it's two guys in a garage, or disruptive innovation or something else buzzwordy when it's done inside a big company, is wasting a lot of people's time. And I think we can do something about it.
Bagby and the leadership at AAVSB agreed, and they decided to adopt the Lean Startup methodology as a system for innovation. And they brought on board consultant Elizabeth Engel of Spark Consulting to help them learn the framework and implement it.
So our two-person team, it's me and our project specialist. We first had to up our game. Like, we had to read the books, we had to become the on-staff experts, but we had a tutor, if you will, a consultant, in this case, Elizabeth, who helped us, shortcut, give us Cliff Notes versions, shortcut how this might work.
We'll hear those Cliff Notes ourselves in just a moment, but before we do, a quick reminder that the insights you're about to hear came directly from PAR's in-person conference, the RevUP Summit. The thought leadership and insight that comes out of RevUP each year is some of the best you'll find relating to association business practices. Repackaging those insights into a podcast is how we ensure that ideas for better business extends well beyond the conference into a wider association audience. And we couldn't do it without the production team VPC Incorporated. PAR knows that the audio and visual component of any event plays a major role in the entire event experience. And it's for that reason that we partner with VPC to bring the RevUp Summit to life. VPC believes in the work of associations and in the work of PAR, which is why they partner with us for this podcast. More information on them can be found in the show notes. As Bagby shared moments ago, Elizabeth Engel from Spark Consulting helped AAVSB implement a lean startup approach to their innovation goals. And now she's sharing it with us.
Your association has plenty of great ideas, right? We are not operating in a world where there's a dearth of ideas. You've got ideas from yourself, from your C-suite, from your staff, from your board chair, from your committee chairs, from your committee members, from your members, right? There's ideas all over the place. The issue is all of those ideas are great things that you could do, that you could build, that you could create, but they're all based on assumptions about three key things.
Engel goes on to say that associations make assumptions about their audiences, what their problems are, and what the solution should be. The Lean Startup Framework addresses each of those three assumptions, and we'll use an example from Bagby to show how the framework is used. AAVSB is using it to test a new potential non-dues revenue idea, the Mobility Assistance Program for veterinary professionals.
So one of the problems that veterinary professionals have is if they want to go from one state to another, they have to get licensed in the other state. And all of this paperwork to get licensed in 16 states is really a hassle. So we have services to help them. One of the things we've never done is actually tried to reach those licensees through organizations that hire them. The purest form of this product development framework that we've put into place so far is to test, is there something there that we could help a multi-jurisdictional organization to help their employees get licensed where they need to get licensed, but we're connecting through the organization? What does that even look like, right? Where is a revenue stream to fund that? Would they pay for something like that?
Remember, Engel says the Lean Startup methodology is based on three assumptions: our audience, their problem, and the solution. With this in mind, Bagby says they had to decide if the problem AAVSB perceived for its audience was actually a problem. To find out, they did something obvious. They asked.
We did the first experiment. We had about 80% who said, yeah, this sounds like something of interest to me, right? And then we had to go into the next experiment with, okay, now what do they do? Now they've said that they're interested in the concept. What is the thing that we're going to give them while still maintaining to ourselves? We're going to reduce our sunk costs. We're not going to put a bunch in development. We're not going to build out some great tech program for this. Like we're going to keep it simple, and we're going to do our next experiment.
The next experiment set off something that Reese refers to as the build, measure, learn cycle. The goal is to get product developers to a proof of concept. It's a way to test your assumptions of, I think this is a good idea, by actually getting a solution into the hands of your audience so that they can then tell you what they think of it. Here's Engel.
This is a build first mindset, and that's a bit of a challenge for associations. We tend to like to operate in stealth mode. What do I mean by that? Somebody comes up with a great idea. Again, C-suite, board, committees, staff, whoever, right? The great idea surfaces and we're like, yes, this is wonderful. We are going to make this. And then we go away for weeks, months, sometimes years at a time until it is perfect. And then when it is perfect, we can finally release it out to our member community. And then we find ourselves in Eric Ries's situation of we've just released a thing that nobody wants, right? And so you're trying to build first, but how do you actually do that without getting yourself right back into the exact problem you were trying to avoid in the first place of putting all these resources toward doing the wrong thing? The minimum viable product. A minimum viable product is just a fancy name for a prototype.
Engel explains a minimal viable product in this way. Imagine an audience who tells you, the product developer, that they want a new way to get from point A to B that is faster than walking. The solution you come up with is to invent something you'll call an automobile. But to build an effective and functioning automobile, you first need to develop wheels, axles, a body, and an engine. And here's where Engel says products often fail, because the solution is too complex and involves too many resources to even know if the solution is the correct one to solve your audience's problem. Now imagine if that same product development team instead came up with the most basic and simple upgrade to the problem. That solution quickly gets into the hands of the audience, and then they can tell you what they like, what they don't, and how they want the product improved.
We need to get from A to B faster than walking. Okay, what's the simplest way to do that? Skateboard. Stick them wheels on the bottom of a board, off you go. So then our audience, who is now using our skateboard, comes back to us and says, I would really like to be able to steer. Can you help me with that? Yeah, sure, we can. But now it's a scooter, right? We can add a little thing where you can steer. And then, they go and they use that and say, this is great. I like to be able to steer. There's this technology out there called gears. It's a force multiplier. Could you maybe give me some gears? Okay, yeah, sure, we'll make you a bicycle, right? Okay, this is great. I'm force multiplier. Now I'm really going fast. There's this other technology you might want to check out. It's called an engine. Oh, yeah, okay, we can make you a motorcycle. Oh, man, this is great. Now I'm really getting places fast. But, I'd occasionally like to be able to take people with me and or carry stuff, and also sometimes it rains. Can you make me something that'll protect me from the elements and let me carry stuff? Okay, well, now we've built the car, but our audience was happy right from the beginning because we were already solving their problem.
And here's where associations can utilize their own version of the minimal viable product. AAVSB used this approach to test their mobility assistance program. Here's Bagby explaining how.
So we had a concept of, okay, let's maybe give them a concierge, somebody that an expert that, there's a red phone to this expert. When they have a question, they can call us and we can help guide them through the process. So that was the idea. We see there's something to the idea, but now does it fit our business model? What does it fit what we need it to do to keep it running? And we can give that assessment to the board. So now we're in this cycle of trying to get to market ready. And then if all of that works out, then you have a market ready and you actually launch it. You put it in your operational budget. You start counting on revenue. You do all that. But we are right now testing the MVP to see if it can be market ready. And so the goal at the end of this year is to be able to go back to the board of directors and say, can this generate revenue for us? How much revenue does it look like it's going to generate for us compared to how much cost and resources we're going to have to use? And let them decide if that's enough of a profit margin for us to continue the program.
Bagby and her team have been testing the new program concept for nearly a year and a half. If that sounds like an eternity for your association who urgently needs new revenue ideas, you're not alone. In fact, Bagby emphasizes that the biggest challenge of the lean startup approach is the operational shift required from association staff. But it's also the most crucial. To initiate a change to the framework, she advises using it in a way that will result in a quick win. In AAVSB's case, this meant leveraging the framework to phase out an existing program that was draining time and resources.
Don't necessarily start with the longest project first, right? Try to find your quick win, and then people are going to be like, oh, great. We were able to figure out that wasn't going to work, and you took it off my plate, and we don't have to think about that thing anymore. And that will start to make your cultural shift for you when it starts to impact every person in the organization. Like, okay, this helps me understand what leadership wants and help me make sure I don't waste my time.
Secondly, Bagby says to use entrepreneurial management to create a shared vision for your staff by empowering each of them to generate their own ideas.
What nonprofits typically do and associations typically do is the ideas come from top down, not the bottom up, right? So we haven't necessarily empowered our entire staff or even trained them in how to think about these experiments so they can be trying stuff and bubbling it up. The ideas are pushing down from the top. And then they're asked for middle managers and frontline staff to execute, and they don't know how because that wasn't my idea. What is the vision? I don't understand it. Like, okay, you're telling me to do it. I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. And they do, but we haven't equipped them to do it. And it's not their vision. They haven't been doing the experiments. They haven't been seeing what's working.
One final point on the lean startup methodology and what it may look like for your organization. What will the board think about it? In the case of AAVSB, Bagby says this.
Our board of directors loves this process. They love it. Because not only does the staff have a shared understanding of what we're doing, we have a communication plan for how we report back to them. And they know their own ideas are going to be put through it. So it's not such a problem to if somebody has an idea, but it isn't going to work out.
It gives you a structure to say, no.
We ran through the whole process.
Right.
It's all fair, right? So it helps the board, even with their own ideas, sort of go, okay, well, now I've seen the work you've done. We've shown the work, and yes, it will work or no, it won't. But it's not just somebody says we have to do it, and so therefore it must be done.
That's it for this episode of Association RevUp. Throughout the second season, we'll be hearing from associations who are utilizing business to drive their missions forward. And we'll share quick tips on how your association can do the same. Episodes are brought to you by VPC Inc., the production company behind PAR's in-person event, the RevUp Summit. Check in with their team the next time you need production support at your annual event. And my thanks to the PAR Pathway Partners. Association business development is changing rapidly, and the Pathway Partners share PAR's commitment to association business. Learn more about MCI, PopShop, Matchbox, SwapCard, Multiview, and YesEnd on our PAR website. I'm your host, Carolyn Shomali, and I'll see you next time.